Have you ever scrolled past a photo of some bizarre, seemingly impossible creature online and thought to yourself, wait, no way, is that actually real or is it just Photoshop? If you have, you are definitely not alone. From the legendary liger to the bizarre wolfen, the internet is absolutely flooded with these crazy claims. So let's dive into this explainer and separate the myths from the actual genetic realities of hybrid animals. Because behind those viral images is a genuinely fascinating and honestly sometimes deeply complicated world of genetics, biology, and human intervention.
Welcome to today's explainer, where we are going to unpack the fascinating world of crossbreeding. Think of this as a journey along what I like to call the spectrum of intervention. We're going to start by looking at natural anomalies, creatures that manage to find each other completely out in the wild. And then we'll journey all the way over to human-engineered marvels born in captivity. It's really just a brilliant way to understand how genetics adapt and sometimes how human curiosity completely rewrites the rules of nature.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. We'll be covering 1. Naturally occurring wild hybrids, 2. Big cats bred by humans, 3. Captive oddities and experiments, 4. Crossbreeding for agricultural utility, 5. Unintended ecological costs, and finally, 6. Spotting fake hybrids.
Kicking things off with Section 1, Naturally Occurring Wild Hybrids.
So let's start with a baseline fact. Hybridization actually happens in the wild without any human interference at all. It's a huge misconception that every hybrid is cooked up in a lab or a zoo somewhere. In reality, nature's been running its own genetic experiments for millennia. Take the coy wolf, for example. This is a mix between a coyote and an eastern wolf. And what's absolutely staggering here is that this isn't some modern phenomenon. Get this. The coy wolf has been breeding on its own in the wild for somewhere between 150,000 and 300,000 years. They sit right between their parents in size and carry an incredibly aggressive nature. It's literally natural selection at work, where overlapping territories just naturally resulted in a brand new, highly successful predator.
And we're seeing shifting ecosystems forcing new natural pairings even today. For instance, marine biologists are actually seeing growing sightings of the narluga, which is a mix between a narwhal and a beluga whale out in the North Atlantic. They don't exist in captivity at all. They are purely wild. And on land, polar bears and brown bears, whose cold and warm climates are increasingly overlapping, naturally mate to create the growler bear, which, by the way, is also famously, and somewhat hilariously, known as the Pizzly bear. While you can occasionally find growler bears in zoos, these wild, overlap-driven sightings prove that nature is constantly adapting all on its own.
Moving right along to Section 2, Big cats bred by humans.
So what happens when human breeders step in? Let's focus specifically on large, breathtaking cats, because this brilliantly illustrates how much specific parentage actually matters. When we intervene, we create animals that would never naturally meet. Take a male lion and a female tiger, and you get a liger. But if you flip the genetics, take a male tiger and a female lion, you get a tigon. Parentage totally dictates the species. Both of these majestic animals exist purely in captivity, simply because a wild lion and tiger just don't cross paths to breed. And now, breeders are even crossing ligers and tigons together just to see what kind of stunning creatures will emerge next.
To give you a sense of scale on just how wildly these genes can express themselves when we mix them, look at this. Hercules, the largest known liger, weighs a truly mind-blowing 904 pounds. To put that into perspective, that is roughly the weight of a grand piano. And he's not considered obese. He is simply the largest cat on Earth. Ligers grow massive, and they do it incredibly fast, completely due to this unique, human-engineered genetic combination of a male lion and female tiger. Okay, Section 3, Captive Oddities and Experiments.
Beyond big cats like the rare Jaglion, a male jaguar and female lion mix, or the stunning Leopon, human breeders have really pushed the boundaries across the whole animal kingdom. This brings us to captive oddities, which are created largely just to see what's actually possible. A perfect example of this human curiosity is the Savannah cat. It's a very expensive hybrid between a domestic cat and a wild serval. And what you should really take away from this is how utterly unpredictable hybrid behavioral traits can be. Unlike most house cats, Savannah cats have zero fear of water. Amazingly, they actually behave much more like dogs. They wag their tails, they are intensely loyal, and they literally love to play fetch.
The crucial point here is that a massive variety of animals exist out there purely due to human curiosity. Take the Zonkey, a zebra and donkey mix. Super adorable, sure. But breeders found it wasn't actually any stronger or smarter than its parents. It was just bred to see if it could be done. Then you have the hinny, a female donkey and male horse mix that looks much more like a horse. But as we move into extreme rarities, things do take a bit of a darker turn. Take the wolfen, a cross between a male false killer whale and a female bottlenose dolphin. While one currently lives in Hawaii, it is vital to note the tragic loss of the first wolfen bred at Tokyo SeaWorld, which died at just 200 days old. It just goes to show that these experiments can be heavily fraught with a heartbreaking fragility.
Which brings us to Section 4, Crossbreeding for Agricultural Utility. Now we see a shift in motivation. This is crossbreeding not just for curiosity, but for strict agricultural utility. Humans have actively tried to optimize animals for very specific jobs. Back in 1998, breeders in Dubai used artificial insemination to create the Kama, a camel and llama hybrid. It was designed specifically for its fur and to be a capable pack animal, though only 5 were ever born. Over in Tibet and Mongolia, they breed the Zo, a cow and wild yak mix, because it yields significantly more milk and meat and is physically way stronger than its parents. And finally, there's the Zubran, a cross between a cow and a European bison, originally bred for its incredible strength and disease resistance, though today only a small wild herd remains in a Polish national park.
Now for the flip side, Section 5, Unintended Ecological and Genetic Costs.
Manipulating nature comes with strict, undeniable biological consequences. This isn't just a simple matter of matching 2 animals and getting the best of both worlds. Genetics can be incredibly complicated and, honestly, deeply unforgiving. First up, we have sterility. The mallard, a cross between a mallard and Muscovy duck bred heavily for food, just cannot reproduce. Humans have to continually intervene to breed them. Second, there are tragic developmental issues. Breeders have repeatedly tried to create the geep, a goat and sheep mix, and while baby goats and sheep are undeniably adorable, the geep is incredibly difficult to produce because most are tragically stillborn. And finally, there's the most lasting cost of all, gene contamination, where pure wild genes permanently vanish into domestic lines.
A stark representation of that genetic contamination really comes down to a single number, 4. Let's look at the beefalo, a mix of a cow and a buffalo, sometimes called a catalo. They've been bred since 1800 because they're hardier cattle and do less ecological grazing damage. But the unintended side effect is just massive. Because of this crossbreeding, experts believe there are only 4 wild buffalo herds left in existence today that do not carry cow genes. All the rest have been genetically contaminated. That is absolutely wild when you think about it, and it raises serious, undeniable ecological questions about the permanent loss of true, pure species. Let's wrap things up with Section 6, Spotting Fake Internet Animal Hybrids. Finally, let's bring it back to what you might see scrolling online. Because not every bizarre creature on your feed is a feat of genetics or a tragedy of human intervention. Let's be real, some are just blatant digital lies. You have to look for plausible genetics. A donkey and a zebra can technically share DNA to make a zonkey, and a horse and a donkey can make a hinny because they're part of the same broader biological families. But that viral photo you've likely seen of a horse seamlessly mixed with a bird, absolutely nothing more than pure, laughable Photoshop manipulation. A horse and a bird just do not share the compatible genetic building blocks required to breed. The rule of thumb here is, if the parent animals aren't genetically adjacent, you are looking at digital art, not biology. So, we've seen how nature creates the coy wolf out of pure necessity, and how humans engineer massive ligers and hardy beefalos out of curiosity and utility. But knowing that pure wild yak and pure buffalo genes are actively disappearing into these engineered lines, it leaves us with a pretty profound question. As human intervention continues to blur the lines of biology, how far will we go? And what does it actually mean for the future of our planet's wildlife? Will pure species survive, or is the future inevitably hybrid? Thanks so much for exploring this explainer with me today, and hey, always keep questioning what you see.